Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I want to share a story with you today about my my cellie Yu. He's Chinese, right? I ran into him in Beaumont when I was leaving Victorville. He was coming from Pollock, and we had caught the plane together, and ended up being showing up to Beaumont, and then ended up being cellies. And while you're cellies, you got a lot, especially in Beaumont, we're locked down all the time. So you got a lot of cell time together. And through the course of our time, we share stories about, things that we've done, a little bit of our life history and all that, just, for the sake of conversation or whatever, killing time. But he came to America when he was 16, right? He had jumped on a fucking boat from China and got smuggled over here to the Americas, to New York. And he was telling me about his journey. Like, they have a thing called snakeheads, right? The snakeheads are the people that, smuggle people from China to New York or to California. And it was about a 3-month journey on the sea. And he was telling me, like, the stuff they were going through while they were on there. The girls that were on the voyage with them, that was in the boat with them, they were getting violated, by these fucking dudes that were smuggling them. And some of them were trading, sexual favors for food and all that stuff. Well, he said about 2 months on their voyage, they ran out of food. They had people that died on the ship that they had to throw overboard. And they, like I said, about the last month, they were like on their last leg. They were dehydrated and starving, but they could see the coast of New York. They could see New York, the land. And when they were pulling up, the Coast Guard started coming out, got their lights on, and was heading towards the boat. The snakehead, they were gonna turn around and head back out to sea, but all the people that was on the boat gaffled them up, held them hostage, and made them surrender the boat because they were about to die. So after that trip, they processed him or whatever, and he ended up at a sweat lodge. Not a sweat lodge, but at a sweatshop. Mind you, he's 16 years old, don't speak the language, came to America to look for a better life. But when you don't have money and you're coming across the if you don't have money and these Chinese are smuggling you over, you're gonna owe them money. And the way to pay them back is hard labor, sweatshop, or join one of their criminal enterprise. So when he was out here at 16, he was working at a sweatshop out in New York somewhere. This is in the 80s, right? But nobody wants to break their back for pennies on the dollar for the rest of their lives, because you never really get to pay them back. Because even back in the 80s, just imagine what $65,000 is. $65,000 in the 80s is probably equivalent to like $200-something thousand now, right? So $65,000, $70,000 that he had owed the Chinese people, a Chinese mob, and he had to work that off at $1, $2 an hour. So you're going to be spending the rest of your life under their thumb. So instead of doing that, he decided to, join one of their crews. And the crew that he was from was Flying Dragon. Now in New York at the time, they had Golden Shadows, Green Dragon, Flying Dragon. I'm pretty sure they had a couple more, but I don't know them all. And they had a Vietnamese crew called BTK. BTK is Born to Kill. And the people that started the BTK, they were these older Vietnamese dudes that had escaped from Vietnam after the war. So if anybody knows any history about the Vietnam War, you know that was one of the most crucial wars in our history. They had more soldiers, American soldiers, that died after they came home than they did during the war. I think that we had over like 50-some thousand soldiers that died in the Vietnam War. Well, more than that, off themselves when they came home because of all the craziness that they seen when they were down there. You know, I met people from both sides of the wars, where there's old military dudes that used to tell me about the war in Vietnam, or old Vietnamese dudes that was on the other side of it. And, you know, if you ever get a chance, you go look it up, check out the history. It was some ferocious shit, you know. So you got these dudes, these BTK dudes, that are fresh from the war. You know, they got here in the late 70s, early 80s, and they're psychologically fucked up. Now you're in a new country that you don't know the language, you don't have any job skills that you can transition to civilian life because all you know is military stuff, right? But these dudes, they're not going to sit around and starve to death and beg, so they formed their Vietnamese gang, BTK. I think they wrote books about them. Now the BTK, as far as the Vietnamese community is concerned out here, not really in Utah, but you know, California, New York, you know, the big cities, everybody knows about the BTK. The Vietnamese and the feds, they kind of look up to them like the big homies. So their, you know, their word carry a little weight to the federal system. But all the other Chinese, the other Asian gangs, they blame the BTK for the reason that all the Asians got taken down out of New York. You know, the Chinese went and told the BTK, say, hey man, you know, whatever you're killing out here, whatever, do whatever you want to do. But you can't off no police, no cops. Those are off limits. If you do that, the heat's gonna come down. But the BTK, they didn't give a fuck. They were murking officers, people that were investigating them and all that. And when they did that, it brought down the heat. So my homeboy Hugh, my cellie, he's from Flying Dragon. Now New York's get split into blocks. Like this would be Green Dragon territory. This would be Flying Dragon territory, and so on and so forth. And on those streets and those blocks, they'd have whorehouses, gambling houses, and anybody that opened a business on their side of the street got to pay them rent, right? And you know, for me, like, you know, when you grow up older and you learn about these things and you find out that we're really just suppressing our own people. You know, the blacks fuck up their own community. The Italians are extorting other Italians, and the Asians are doing the same thing to each other. You know, so how the Green Dragon fell was they had an extortion. They were extorting these businesses, and one of the owners refused to pay up. And my homeboy Brian and his co-defendant, they're from Green Dragon. They went over there, and they went over there to collect, and the lady, dude refused. And oh, thank you. Ooh, look, I got a smoothie. Is it a smoothie? What is this?
It's a coffee.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm not gonna edit this one. That's one of my artists, Bonita. She's cool as shit. She's the fave. She's the fave for sure. Yeah, thank you.
They're my favorite.
But so the people they were trying to extort refused, and the youngsters blew their brains out. And that's how the Green Dragon ended up in the feds. So going back to my homeboy Hugh, he joined up with the Flying Dragons, and one of the things they did to make money was you have Chinese family out there in China that send their kids out here to school, right? To college and whatever. So the people in China would go to their family and tell them, hey, you need to pay us this amount of money. Because most of the people that get sent to school to America, most of the time, we just say 8 out of 10 times, their family in China has a little wealth. So their branch out in China would go to the family and say, hey, you need to pay us this and this and that, or something's going to happen to your daughter or your son that's out here in America. And when the family refused, they send the kids out here to go kidnap the student. And that's how Hugh ended up with a lot. I think he ended up with 20-something years, but his co-defendant Mujai, that was in that water, may end up with a life sentence. So on his case, I read the case. On his case, they went and kidnapped this girl. She was going to one of the universities out of New York. So they had her for about 3 days. They had her hostage. They're calling home. They're calling back to China. China's trying to collect from their family. I don't know how much money they were extorting the family for, but in the process, one of their co-defendants ended up violating the girl and murking her. So all of them got hit for rape, murder, extortion, right? So when Hugh comes in, he shows the paperwork. He's like, hey man, look, I have this on my case. There's a rape case, murder case, extortion case, this and that. And he explained to me that, he was working for the mob and all that. And I read the paperwork, and the dude that did, they did the DNA samples and all that stuff. The dude that did the violation, he ended up, the violating, he ended up testifying against everybody else. So Mujai, Hugh and stuff, yeah, they were on their case, and they got that, that rape on their case, but they weren't the perpetrator that did the act. And, by the time that I ran into Hugh, he already been down since the mid-90s. I think the early 90s was when they took down all the Chinese, all the Asian gangs out of New York. And he has no family here in America. He doesn't get on no phone. He doesn't get no letters. And he ain't a big dude. He's like my size, a little skinnier. And he's just out here in America just trying to figure it out, man. But, a lot of times we think that these gangsters, these gang members, that they just want to get in this life, that they love this life, they glorify this life, and that's what they want to be. And we never really take a look at the circumstances, what leads these kids into these places. You're an immigrant from China, from Cambodia, from wherever you're from. You don't know the language. You don't know the culture. You have no skills. You're by yourself. He came here at 16 years old by himself. him and a couple of his friends. You're put in a sweat lodge, a sweatshop, breaking your back, never knowing when you're going to be able to pay the debt back. And an opportunity comes to you, they come to you and say, hey, join our gang, you're going to live a better life, you're going to have money in your pocket, food on your table. How many of us going to turn that down? We're in a foreign country, don't know the language, don't have any family members, fending for ourselves. And, these older heads, these older Chinese dudes, they call him the big brother, right? Big brother, I guess that's a terminology for the leader or whatever. Big brother is the money man. He comes over here, he's got the finance to do whatever. He goes and recruits himself a crew and say, hey, we're going to be running this gambling house. We're going to be running these whorehouses and all the rest. And these girls, they're getting shipped over here. They're not picking them up over here off the street of New York. They're getting shipped over from China. And they have a 3 to 6 month period at each station, right? So like if the Green Dragon brings them over, they're gonna serve them their whorehouses for about 6 months. Then they're gonna cycle them out. They're gonna send them to the next organization. They might send them to Texas, send them back to California, Boston. They ship them all over the country while a fresh batch comes in, and it's fucked up. There's a lot of people out there that really don't have a choice about the situation that they're in. And some of them are in some fucked up situation, man. But a lot of times, people from the outside looking in are quick to judge. Because, growing up in America, I don't care what color skin you are, white, black, brown, yellow, and all the rest. There's a sense of entitlement and there's privilege, especially if you were born here. Even if you're born into some circumstances that aren't healthy, you're able to navigate a little better than somebody that's coming over here, don't know the language, but not only don't know the language, but is under the foot of these organized gangs, of these organized crime families. And every human being, our natural instinct is to survive. And that is to survive by any means. You see a coyote that get caught in a bear trap. They'll chew their feet off, to get away, to save their own lives. Us as humans, we're no different. That's why you have these dudes that think they're gangsters and all that shit. But when they get put in that box, they're trying to cut everybody else off. You know what I mean? Sell everybody else out to save their own lives. So if you're a 16-year-old kid out here running in one of the harshest cities in America, you can settle for digging out of the garbage, living off for $1, $2 an hour, working 12-hour days, 14-hour days, and going home, just sleep and get back up in the morning and do it all over again. Yeah, there's some that can do that. And some that are okay with that. And some that will accept that. But a lot of us, if an opportunity comes where we can do something better for ourselves, regardless if it's legal or illegal, I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10 of us is going to take that opportunity. But there's no free passes. When you want the reward, you have to earn it. And with these different organizations, the way you earn a place in them is blood in, blood out. Put in that work, doing that dirt. And then at the end of the day, when the feds kick in the door, the big brother, he's in China, safe. China don't have no extradition. But the ones here in America, they stuck. And they're the one that gets shipped off to the feds. 20, 30, 40 years, life sentences. You know, in this lifestyle, man, there's very few people that makes it without scars, without getting locked up. But to those dudes that are able to do that, I don't believe that they're more intelligent than me, smarter than me. I believe that they've been compromised because in a federal case, when somebody tells they have a case called RICO, that means they don't have to catch you doing anything. If they get somebody within your organization that says you were part of the conversation, you don't even have to be part of the deed. That if you're a member of the organization and part of a conversation, which is conspiracy to commit, you know, they have a thing called conspiracy to commit. So you could be the one giving orders, never to get your hands dirty, but if the person that you gave orders to end up cooperating with the feds and telling, you're going down too. Because like on my case, there was a couple of us that didn't go to prison, right? The rat that's telling on me is telling on them too. The evidence they use to convict me is the same evidence they have to convict somebody else that's on the case. But you don't go to jail, your lawyer is not any better than mine. We all have the same access to the same discovery, the same evidence, the same law. And somehow, you didn't go to jail, and I did, right? So like I said, I repeat, man, when you see these dudes out here in the streets that's doing a whole lot, but they're never getting locked up, I promise you, they're working with the police. Welcome to the USP.